Okay, first of all, there's a room back here after the panel discussion is over. The lodge is going to be open for, several hours. And so back in the vendor room, there's a handful of tables. And everybody who has a table, I want to give them a quick 30-second, 1-minute opportunity to just explain a little bit about what they're doing so you know what's going on back there. Okay, go ahead. Let's see. Actually, let's stand out here.
All right. I'm David Hass, better known as Buku, with the Gold Prospectors of America. I'm selling gold pans, concentrates, vials of gold, no wires, no schematics, not a damn thing about electricity. What in the hell am I doing here? Thank you.
I'm Tad Mooney. I should have brought more arms with me today, but among the things that I make are two that I want to present. One is, first with this one, is I call it EIQ 180, Intelligent Electrolyte Mix. You take a spoonful, add it to water, and you've got an advanced electrolyte sports drink that is much more complete than whatever you can get in the grocery store. And it works like this.
Putting it in some water.
Just put it into a glass of water. And the most important part of the process.
I feel it working.
All right. I can feel it working. So the thing that is omitted not only in commercial sports drinks is not only the rest of the electrolytes, the potassium, the magnesium, the calcium, the copper, the zinc, the manganese, iodine, and boron, but also the opposite ions. Think about the chloride, the sulfate, carbonate, methylsulfonylmethane. We need the other parts of the whole system in order to make it work, and that's what I try to add. Second product is what I call Protein Builder. This is a powdered, concentrated, pre-digested, purified protein. Its balance is based upon human milk. I figured that's probably the best thing for growing our bodies. This, same thing, dry powder, mix it in water. Amino acids, frankly, don't taste fabulous, but they don't. But I don't add any additional flavoring because anything I would use for flavoring, somebody's going to be allergic to it. I don't want that. So add fruit juice or something to make it taste good. But this can enable your body to restore itself after an injury or an illness or heavy workout. I created it because I was really ticked, and I mean it. I saw a friend of mine's mother pass on because of malnutrition. An adult human being was not nourished properly. Plenty of money, plenty of insurance, good care facility. It's like, this is not right. So that's why I created this. Okay, so come back and talk to me about it, and I'll tell you more. Thank you.
Thanks, Ted. Tony?
Hi, my name is Tony Craddock, and we have a booth at the back, and predominantly we sell books and DVDs to help document and memorialize this emerging science, which is not yet a science. And it started out with Tom Bearden, and as many of you know, there's enough energy inside a cup this size to boil all the oceans of the world. It's just a question of tapping into it and using it. And Tom brilliantly put together all the pieces of theory that were scattered all around physics, nonlinear optics, electrical engineering, and so on and so on and so forth, combined it into one science, primarily to convince the scientists that the science was good, but they just didn't know about it. And so we put together a DVD series, starting out with Tom Bearden, and morphing into Howard Johnson, the magnetics guru. We filmed him before he passed on. Professor Deborah Chang, one of the leading material scientists in the US, who invented a over-unity device, which was very interesting. Professor Daniel Sheehan of the University of San Diego, who held the first ever law questioning the viability of the second law of thermodynamics. And then we moved on to John Bedini, who's actually our second featured DVD. And now we're up to 39 DVDs and a number of books memorializing this science. And the object is to memorialize the science so it doesn't get lost. When we first started dealing with Tom Bearden, as fast as he published stuff, it would disappear. And I thought, this is not good. We need, this needs to be memorialized. So that's our mission. We have a table at the back. We're selling DVDs and books memorializing this new science and to archive it. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Tony. Tom?
We make stuff. So you guys have seen some of the work we do over there. And what, is it too loud? Well, I just said I know. I like it close. So we make Bedini monopole energizers, LED board kits. We wind coils for you guys. We can do custom coil winding components. We now have 3D printing surfaces. If you have something you want 3D printed, you send me a sketch and we can work through a couple of rough drafts and make you something. If you have something you want printed, it's not really cheap because it's just kind of labor intensive, but if there's something you can't get anything else, we can do it. We also have circuit board design services. Again, prototyping circuit boards is not cheap, but if you want something custom made, we can do that for you. So we just kind of, I think our new model is going to be, we help you make stuff. So anyway, come see me before you guys leave.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Tesla Genix is Tom's company. Then Ken?
I'll be brief since I've been up here a couple times. I help take your message and the book that's inside you and turn it into a tangible product, and it helps you get sales because I help you market it correctly so it doesn't become a storage item, it becomes more of a legacy. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Ken. Does anybody know what today happens to be? So today is Tesla's 160th birthday, June 10th. July 10th. And so, yeah, happy birthday. So to celebrate that, there's a new documentary called Teslafy Me, which is going to be released in the near future. And what we're going to do is play a trailer from that. It is one of the original trailers. Since that time, Eric Dollard and some others have been interviewed, so that's not going to be part of it, but it will. And so right after this, you're going to be able to hear directly from the director of this documentary and one of her partners, who's a mover and shaker over on the other side of the world, who's doing a lot of good work to bring these kind of things together. So can somebody turn off all the lights up here, and we'll go ahead and play this.
If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration.
But Tesla is not dead. Tesla is not really dead. Only his poor, wasted body has been still. The important part of Tesla lives in his achievement, which is great.
This man was an amazing humanitarian and altruist.
Tesla was on the cover of Time magazine.
He was one of the most famous people in the entire world.
He was here in New York, socially very well known. He was the ultimate gentleman in black tie, white tails.
With his charm, with his elegance, with his majesty, and at the same time, a great teacher. And he understood in me that I represented him as a younger person.
Who was this man who cared more for humanity than for his own existence?
Uglavnom, on je imitirao prirodu I trudio se da principe koje ona koristi prenese u svoje uređaje I sisteme I zato je imao tako velikog uspeha.
His fame for electricity overshadowed Thomas Edison's fame, I'm sure.
Thomas Edison was still relying on coal
Tesla was interested in the bigger picture. He began to build his Wardenclyffe Tower as a magnifier transmitter that would increase the natural frequency vibration of the Earth.
A Tesla je govorio o slanju energije na suprotnu stranu zemljine kugle ili na bilo koju njenu tačku bez ikakvog slabljenja.
Between 100 kilohertz and 150 kilohertz, there may be a frequency where can transmit without losses electromagnetic power.
Tesla jasno i nedvosmisleno kaže: ja ne radim sa takvom vrstom talasa, nego sa nekom drugom vrstom i preporučujem za upotrebu talase čija je frekvencija od 6 Hz do 20.000 Hz.
But this was not found.
In the year 1900, he forecast that you and I would have a cell phone.
He was able to access source energy and take that and make it physical.
And he knew that at some point, not only would you wirelessly be able to communicate voice, but you'd wirelessly be able to communicate pictures. He saw all of that.
Who was this man who could decode the frequencies of the universe?
We would love to find the answer to that mystery, and that is one of the things that we plan to do in the future.
The present is theirs. The future, for which I have really worked, is mine.
This and more about the work and life of Nikola Tesla is what Teslafy will bring to our minds.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here today on Tesla's birthday and to celebrate it with you. And I'm very thankful to invite us and to make such a great interviews here with very inspiring and very beautiful people who are working and exploring what Tesla left behind. Thank you so much.
Yes, it's quite special to be here on the birthday of this big man. A couple of questions. How long have you been working on this film?
Actually, researching what Tesla was doing and where he was living, it was for 8 years. But shooting documentary, it's now for 2 years.
And when do you expect to release it?
This year.
When?
I don't know.
Okay, this is a true independent film, so we are still working also on a lot of funding to finish it, to do the post-editing and everything. Very grateful that we could interview here the brightest minds actually working in the same field. They will be included in the film, so thank you for that, and thank you for this big opportunity.
And you want to talk about your art and music?
Myself, my name is Olof. I run a festival in the Netherlands called Today's Art. Outside of that, it's an international network. We work in Japan, in Russia, in Mexico, in the Middle East. We're very curious to enter Africa as well. It's a festival for art, music, and technology. And I realized being here that without this man, I couldn't curate these kind of events, because the type of art that I program, electronic music and media art, is not functioning without any electricity. And I even think that this form of art is becoming default. When I curate the big exhibitions or a Biennale, for example, everything needs electricity. And I think if Michelangelo would live right now, I doubt he would paint. So we're very thankful for this electricity, that we learned a lot about it. Actually, our brain is a bit fried of all this information that we got. But thank you so much for having us here. We came from far because we knew that this was a very important conference. And by this film, we also want to promote actually the work of Tesla and your guys' work. I've seen that it's all a lot of intelligent people working independently. One of the speakers this morning said as well, like, imagine that if this group of people will start to collaborate together, how powerful this would be. I also saw that there is a huge lack of funding, same as for this independent director. When you work in big companies, it's easy, but when you work on your own, it's more difficult. We will try to find ways to get huge funding and huge PR to help pushing further, because I think the world is in great need of big solutions, because the way we're heading right now is not the right way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, well, we're in the final day, and this is the final event. Kind of been a long weekend and a lot of planning, and a lot of people coming from all over the place, as far as Azerbaijan, Australia, possibly New Zealand. Most everybody here is from either the U.S. or Canada, but everybody has made quite a commitment to be here this weekend and come to share your time with us, and we really appreciate that. Thank you. So this is definitely an honor to be here with all these gentlemen here, who are who I consider to be basically the leaders of the revolutionary energy movement that is moving forward at a pretty rapid pace. And since about towards the end of last year till now, there's really been a kind of an acceleration. It seems like things are just clicking a little bit faster, at a faster pace and kind of coming together. And I've experienced so many profound synchronicities and interesting events this weekend that I can't even explain. It's part of the reason why I've had about 8 hours of sleep in the last 3 days. But I guess let's give all these guys a hand. Let's start with Eric Dollard. He made a journey up here from Nevada, Lone Pine. And 4-hour presentation is that's quite an effort. That's pretty difficult. And then Mike Waters, thank you so much for being with us. This is the first time you've been to our conference. Appreciate that. And Jim Murray, and it sounds like you're going to be a little bit closer to Spokane, still a little bit far, but we're looking forward to possibly having you in Spokane a little more often. And so, Mr. Jim Murray. And Professor Harlick, last conference, we sat down and you shared a couple things with me and said you might have something interesting to share at the next year's conference. And I didn't understand too much about diamagnetic and paramagnetic fields, just kind of superficially, but thank you for coming and sharing what you're doing and bringing some real science to this field. It's incredible. Honored to have you. Thank you. And then Graham, one of my generational buddies here in Spokane. Luckily, a lot of us are pretty close here. And the interview that I had on YouTube with Graham last year and what he explained, what he wanted to show was what you were able to see this weekend. And I saw the process that he went through putting this together, and he was working at pretty much like a full-time job after his full-time job all the way up until the conference to be able to share this with you. So thank you so much. And then Mr. Moray King, who Gene Manning had recommended that I talk to, and understanding that he was very much into water, fuel, and plasma, automatically he's cool. So, so thank you for being here and sharing that presentation. It was absolutely incredible. And then Paul, another one of our Spokane buddies here, we met back when I still owned a health food store. Closed that down in September 2006, and I think it was maybe 1 or 2 years before that Peter had actually brought me out to Paul's shop for the first time, and that was your company pretty much in the garage over at your home, and we spent 9 years in there. 9 years developing that, and I've seen the battles and the fights, and didn't see you for a few years and kind of reconnected and still pushing and you're making it happen, and it's absolutely incredible how far it's come. Most people would have given up a long time ago. So thank you so much, Paul. And Peter Lindemann, we've worked on a lot of projects together, and over about the last year or so, he has a lot of commitments over in Australia with some pretty incredible projects going on. So weren't even sure that he would even have the time to be with us at this conference. And you can see, the time, the money, the effort, to put into this machine just to bring it to this conference to demonstrate this and to be able to share his knowledge of the Cromray generator. And this machine right here, that was a monster to put together. You can see the circuitry there. And Eric and Tom at Teslagenics making that possible, just really busting it hard just to be able to make this a possibility for you guys. So thank you for your commitment to this, Peter. Even though you didn't have very much time, you did it, and that's beyond words. So thank you so much.
We have one more person to thank. That's Aaron, who put the whole thing together.
Thank you. So, do any of you up here have anything that you want to say, or any comments or anything, and get some discussion going and get some people? Jim? Me? This time there's a microphone spread throughout the table. We don't have to drag a corded one.
Well, let me say this. I started off on the exploration of this type of work when I was still a kid. I was 19 years old. And I always figured it would be a one-man game. And it was for a number of years, literally. So it's really gratifying to see not only the fact that the consciousness has expanded and there are so many other people doing this type of thing, but also the fellowship and the interplay between other very highly intelligent individuals and cultured minds to make the same thing happen more quickly and more broadly is very gratifying, very exciting, and I'm glad these times are upon us. It was very interesting going it alone, but it's not as gratifying, so thank you for that.
Does anybody want to start lining up to ask questions? You have a chance to talk to some pretty remarkable men here. So,
Mr. Walters, you talked briefly about using graphite for storing energy. How would that relate to like using that with supercapacitors and possibly ways that you could better take advantage of it through different variables?
Sorry. I mentioned that we're seeing self-charging effects with graphene, and that's just the beginning. So yes, you can make some very powerful supercaps and batteries using graphene, but it's just one of the material combinations. So it's not an end-all by itself, but it is an entire industry. So I think graphene could probably affect just about every field. Really cool stuff.
I have a million questions, but I'm not going to ask all of them. One of the things, I come from a scientific research background. I work for, by the way, for Nassim Haramein. For those of you who are aware of him, I work with him every day, and we do scientific physics research, and we're working on a lot of things similar to this, particularly gravitation and so on.
Scott, mention what your position is.
I'm the Director of Engineering for Nassim Haramein's concern, the Resonance Project, Resonance Foundation. And you'll find it on the web at resonance.is. There's a whole course in the new physics that's on there called the Delegate Program Level 1. And you might, if you're interested in really understanding the science behind a lot of this, that I recommend to everyone. Anyway, I was at this conference 3 years ago and got a lot out of it. This conference has been even better. One thing that I would like to see a little bit more of is trying to piece together sort of a more holistic, unified theory about how all this works. I see little bits and pieces and little bits of light here and there, but it's hard. It's like discovering an elephant from different sides when you're all blind. And I'm beginning to see a glimmer of light, though. One of the things that I see frequently, and this is what I'd like people to comment on, is many of the modalities, like Podnikov, for example, with his anti-grav, and this machine as well, and several of the what you showed, your name is escaping. Grant. Yeah, what you showed yesterday, all of them have one thing I noticed in common. There's a sudden whip of, or spike of energy. In the case of Podnikov, he uses a Mars generator to go pew, and spark the center of a rotating magnetic field, and he gets a gravitational pulse that's pretty powerful. And then there's some other ones with Coulomb force projection that nobody has been discussing. There have been some theoretical papers that we follow a lot of that stuff. We're constantly scouring the scientific literature for things like that, and we're working on our own projects. I can't talk about a lot of what we're doing, but it's very interesting. Privately, we could talk about it. I welcome people to come and visit us, perhaps.
Do you have a question specific for
Yeah,
any
the
of the
specific
speakers?
question is, what is the theory behind, what is a unified theory? Because, you know, Nassim created a unified field theory of physics. What's a unified field theory that can explain how to pull energy from the vacuum, I call it the ubiquium. How do you get, what's a unifying concept that you can pull from behind that? What pierces the entry point into the vacuum? What is it?
Yes, that's for me. You're absolutely right. The spike event is the trigger event. And what is being triggered, there's different points of view, but experimentally, it's shown there's excess energy in that spike. Now, some might say it's associated with the ball lightning, but you can ask the next question, why would the ball lightning, which they can measure on every single discharge, at the tip of the discharge, why is that tapping the energy? Why does that contain excess energy? And there's many points of view on the various theories of the nature of the vacuum and the nature of vacuum energy. And so prior to worrying about the details of the unified field theory, I think getting experiments to harvest that is the important thing. Then we'll have plenty of theorists to come along later, and there's already theories being presented. Where I showed Wheeler, some of Wheeler's work. I know Nassim is doing it. And Peter wrote a great book on radiant energy to explain the cold currents in Ed Gray's project. But what I see here at the conference is the engineering talent amongst not only the speakers, but in the audience too, electrical engineering talent, and the talent to harness and switch very rapidly these spiking events and being able to harvest these spiking events. And what thrilled me the most was that I kept visioning where the channels of spikes to harvest them, and the answer was plasma tubes. There's enough talent here to re-resurrect the principle that T. Henry Moray was doing to make the plasma tubes. And it's basically redirecting spikes into an ion oscillator tube that maintains the ball lightning in the tube, and thus we can harvest the energy directly out as electricity. And we have, the talent is actually here because of what we heard about, incredible switching talent on how to control the spikes and use them, that I know as a group project, that could actually succeed.
I'd like to make one comment about the unified field theory. Here's my deal. After years of studying, even Einstein went to his grave, scratching his head and his butt, trying to figure it out. You know, considered the greatest mind of the 20th century. And what I've come to is when you talk ether events and ether physics, it's not a three-dimensional phenomenon, and we're three-dimensional beings. So the answer to that is we have to expand our mental and psychic capacities, because the theory of the unified field theory is beyond our three-dimensional understanding. And we haven't grown there yet. But this is what we're working on. The technology growth is one thing, but the human growth is the most fundamental thing that's going to get us there. We have to drop our old beliefs that no longer serve us. We have to understand that we have other sensing and talents We need to understand our bioforce and our bioenergy, and when we expand our minds a little more and are able to look at things in multidimensionality from a three-dimensional standpoint, then we'll be able to figure out that unified field theory. But it's beyond three-dimensional physics. And that's kind of my take on it.
I think that there are a number of
Yeah, no closer.
I think there are a number of different types of things that are going on that all don't have exactly the same explanations. The ones with the spikes, the sharp pulses, what's going on there, I have a suspicion, is that mass is being exchanged for spin. And that we are making an exchange with another aspect of our reality in which that action that has been set up with the sharp pulse gives up some mass and is returned in spin. And the spin then attaches itself to whatever, the electrons in many of the devices that we have seen, having additional energy, and that's where the energy is coming from. The other aspect of this is with the diamagnetic fields. And those fields are the same kind of fields that consciousness creates. And then I think that there's another part to this whole free energy business, which is not just mechanical, but really has to do with consciousness. And this is the reason why there are these stories where people have done things in their basements and in their garages, and it works fine, and they take it out of their garage and they bring it to a laboratory for it to be validated, then nothing works. And the reason is that in the garage and in the basement, they have used their consciousness to raise the gauge. And therefore, what may work in my house may not work in your house, and vice versa. And so there's a consciousness part in this, which makes this totally non-mechanical. And this is a completely different kind of physics.
This conference is really about raising consciousness, but it's camouflaged as a technology event. So I hope you're okay with that. Eric, would you like to maybe comment on some of the maybe J.J. Thomson physics and how it relates to the...
Well, if somebody had some questions...
Real close to your mouth.
Somebody had some questions to ask, but...
how to tap the ether.
I can't
basically.
just jump right into it.
Yeah, how do you tap the ether?
I gave a whole presentation on that.
That's okay.
The ether is Aladdin's lamp. It's what you want it to be. I think the previous guy just said that. What we're referring to, he's referring to, is what in my day we understood as psychotronics. That's basically about all I have to say, unless somebody's got a specific question. So needless to say, I'm kind of, as we say in ham radio, QRU.
I have a thought that might be of value to you, because it's certainly been of value to me. And it's engineerable, so that's why it's of valuable, because I can do something with it. We saw John Bedini brought out a spectrum analyzer. It looks like an oscilloscope. It does a completely different thing. I had an oscilloscope that has a spectrum analyzer in it, and you get two very different looking plots. So we can take a waveform and we see a spectrum that looks different than the waveform, or we can take a spectrum and synthesize a waveform. There's one waveform that is its own spectrum. You take a Fourier transform of a Gaussian curve, which looks like a half of a sine wave, but it's a bell curve. It's your statistical bell curve. You run that through a Fourier transform, the spectrum is a statistical bell curve. So it's the same in the time domain as it is in the space domain. When Mike Waters was quoting Feynman and a few other gentlemen this morning, he relayed to us the comment, the different estimates, and these are estimates, of the energy density of empty space. And that's been subject to a lot of debate, right? Some people have estimated that at 0, and they're wrong. It's something, because I can take a radio out past Mars and tune it to any station, I hear noise. So there's some energy there. It is not 0. But what is it is subject to debate. And here's why. Because Mike also brought out the fact that the smaller something gets, the greater the energy density. And this is true for the wavelengths of empty space. What's the minimum size? Because that sets the maximum energy. And the energy in this volume is the summation of all those different frequencies. So the cutoff frequency that we're dealing with becomes very important. Because the smaller the wave, the higher the cutoff, the greater the energy. And if there's no cutoff, it's infinite. Right? So what the answer to that question is very important. If we think of these waves as representing the energy we're trying to harvest, then they need to be cohered. Why can a 10-watt laser cut through this table, but a 10-watt light bulb can't? It's because the waves have the same zero crossing. They're lined up like the teeth on a saw. Can you imagine a saw where it had a bunch of teeth and none of the teeth worked in step with the other teeth? It would basically be a flat surface. It's when the thickness of the saw has the same pattern that it gets an abrasive surface, you see? So combining the waves or synchronizing them is very important. And that happens when we run a pulse or a Gaussian curve through a Fourier transform. We see that synchronization occurs. So a spike is the synchronization of a series of waves. It is how you make laser power out of vacuum energy. That's why a spike is important, in my opinion.
I guess I might as well chip in. Coherence being a definite word for tapping that source, right? From one perspective, we're trying to fit in terms of unified theory. I'm familiar with Nassim's work, and over the years probably gathered 50 or 60 different unified theories. And just sort of looking at them, I see a pattern, and I think, again, there's going to be a collaborative result. But that requires putting the ego aside, and some of the largest egos are in the unified field arena. So, which is funny. I would also say that you can't account for a unified theory without accounting for consciousness. And explaining a non-conscious universe to a consciousness is profoundly funny.
My take on the unified field theory development idea and why there isn't one in this group right now is that I honestly believe that we haven't gathered enough evidence about the behavior of nature yet to actually be able, okay, to postulate what all the evidence suggests. I'm pretty much an empiricist. I run the experiments and I gather data. And in general, the process that I go through is I continue to pile up data and pile up data and pile up data and pile up data until it paints its own picture. And then I look at it and say, oh, that's what it is. And that way I don't have to invent some theory that I try and hammer the data into. I don't have a preconceived idea. I let the evidence paint its own picture.
Just for entertainment purposes only, I actually wrote a little book on a unified field model, kind of an etheric fluid model, and it's called The Quantum Key. Now, in the beginning of it, I do say it's an exploration in imagination, and some people want to argue with me about what's in the book, but how can they argue with my imagination? But I would recommend reading it because I think it's pretty good, The Quantum Key. You have a question?
Thank you. If Nikola Tesla were here today and we said, take a look around, Nikola. How do we get around today? It's still internal combustion engines. We're still little explosions in cylinders. He would say, no way. We had that technology back, when I was doing Wardenclyffe. You mean Wardenclyffe didn't finally get out. You guys still, things are still being suppressed in America and in the world, even today, to this degree. So my question to you would be, what do you guys see for the next 25 years? What hope can you offer us that even though you guys have brilliant answers and fantastic technology, what guarantee do we have that it's going to see the light of day? There's no guarantee, right? But what hope can you offer us that the suppression will just not continue? That 100 years from now, we'll still be on internal combustion engines, et cetera?
That's a very pertinent question, and I'd like to open with this one. Especially on today's day, Tesla's birthday, he made a comment, and I read the quote, and I've been looking for it, but he was being interviewed, and he basically got asked that same question. And he says, well, the bankers and industrialists have stolen my work and made it their century. So he was talking about the 20th century. But he said the next century will be mine. And that's now, right now. So the 21st century is going to be the true Tesla century. It's on, it's everywhere. In my lifetime, the things I've seen change, the awareness, the attitudes, it's all in our minds, it's all in our psyche, it's all in our beliefs as belief generators, and we're going to generate that reality. And who cares about bankers and industrialists and a handful of grubby old men holding humanity back? Hell with them, we're doing it. It's going to happen.
Yeah, they're going to be on the sun anyway.
As I said in my talk, I find that that any individual can know, a lot more truth and fact than any group at any time. The future of society's progress has to do with how many of the individuals advance themselves in their knowledge and in their morality. And we have gotten to a certain place in ourselves, and you guys are getting to a certain place in yourselves, and there's still a lot of people who don't know anything about these technologies, and that the possibilities of living, together in peace on this planet, that it's even achievable. The mass of, the 7 billion people on the planet are not seeing the vision that we see in this room right now, and it's going to take some time for that vision to get out. But if you just talk to anybody, any stray, soccer mom at the grocery store, and bring up conversations about how she sees the future and what's going on, I think you'd be utterly shocked at how much the average person's worldview has changed in the last 10 years. And everybody sees that the world isn't working as well as it used to. Everybody sees this. Everybody knows that the problems are obvious, but the solutions are not finding their way into use. And this is causing a rise in consciousness of everybody. Regardless of whether they know anything about the solutions, everybody is starting to anticipate some huge event, whether it be a complete collapse or a complete integration into something much better, depending on the person's internal chemistry of whether they're a pessimist or an optimist. But, like I said in my talk, Archimedes invented, the screw, the rotary inclined plane, okay? And, but it took another 2,300 years before somebody figured out that they could just take a thin slice of that, turn it into a propeller and push a ship or or a jet airplane or an airplane or anything else. We use turbines in every single, we use them in our air conditioners, we use them in our boats and planes and everything. And it took 2,300 years before the rest of humanity figured out how to use that idea. And things take their own time. And, you know, I think it's more important that we keep the vision of the future open. We project onto each other the expectation of goodwill towards each other, and that any one of us could stand up with a grand new personal enlightenment and share it with others and move the body of humanity forward. And any of this could happen inside, you know, any one of us. Every one of us is participating in this. And so the question is, you know, is a valid question of anticipation. But I think if we look at the tone of the question and say, well, why hasn't it happened yet? What's wrong? It's 100 years later. Why hasn't humanity moved forward? You know, and then we point at all of the bad people who, you know, are holding us all back. But the thing is that we're all participating in that social event. We all, you know, and the other side of that is that if you look at the total population of the planet, then and now, and you look at the total number of people who have access to the kinds of conveniences that we have, and the amount of you know, food and water and information and everything else, collectively, even though we see that there's a general trend towards things coming apart, actually, for the bulk of humanity, today is the best day in history that has ever been. And there are more people who have more knowledge and are better off than ever before. And you know, we have to be willing to look at whole systems in a whole sense, not just the whole system of what's happening to our particular society. The United States society is, you know, there are tremendously negative trends going on here in the United States. But, you know, while we were, you know, moaning and groaning about that, you know, an absolute miracle has happened in China. In the last 20 years, Shanghai 25 years ago was huts. Now it's the third largest city in the world. And they've brought more people out of poverty in China in the last 25 years than is the whole population of this country. Things are moving very rapidly. And the reason we here at this conference are publishing what we're doing is that it's getting out into the world, okay? And so I don't think Tesla would be upset. I don't think Tesla would feel like the time has been wasted. I think he knew the size of the forces he was up against and that we have been up against. And we're doing what he was doing. He was out giving lectures on all of this stuff. He was telling people how his experiments worked. And so we try and do the same.
I have something to say.
Hey, can I just a second, Eric? Deo, would you and Jeff mind maybe bringing a couple glasses of water up here to the table?
So how can we say that Tesla's dream was not achieved when we have a completely global, distributed personal communication system and energy is in abundance everywhere around the planet? I don't think Tesla would be particularly happy at what the sociological outcome was. And I don't see where anybody's made any freer. Everybody's been turned into a slave. And why do we even need all this energy? I'm quite content to live in my car in the forest and just be left alone. Why do we need any of this? To me, the whole thing is an insanity.
Hey, I want to ask really quick. Who was it that asked the question that set all this off? Can you raise your hand? You, guy back there. Thanks for asking it. I want to congratulate you for being here. Because if you're anything like me, you're the only guy that you have much control over in this world, right? I can't tell you what to do, and you can't tell me what to do. And I can't blame my discontents on other people, because then I'm not in charge of my destiny anymore. So thanks for coming here. I chose to build something and share it, and if I hadn't done that, it wouldn't have got invented or shared, I'm pretty sure. And if Aaron didn't choose to put this conference on, we probably wouldn't be here. We'd all be like somewhere else today. Maybe somebody else's conference, but we wouldn't be right here right now. My answer to that question is you got to do something good and share it.
Here, here. We the group in this room, are in the world's largest room, the room for improvement. Nikola Tesla opened the door to that room for improvement for this planet, and I think this day we've honored him by opening the door to everybody to the knowledge of this brilliant group of people. I'm very excited to see what started here, but I think a decade from now, we're going to be very proud for having stepped into this room. And Nikola Tesla is alive in every one of your faces. Someone came up and said, what if Nikola Tesla were here? What would he say about the suppression? I think Nikola Tesla's in this room. I see him in everybody's eyes, and I'm proud to be a part of this group.
First, I'd like to say it's an honor to be here. I've watched the videos of many of you for the past few years, and I'm just happy and honored to be able to ask a question of someone like Mr. Dollard or Mr. Babcock. I mean, all you guys on the stage. I am not as negative in my view of what's about to happen. I think there's a great opportunity to bring what's being talked about in this room to the greater population. I know there's a lot of people who've had experiences with universities and professionals who are experts, and they've kind of frowned on the kind of the things that people have talked about here. But I guess the question I have for you is that has anyone considered actually formalizing the training around what we've learned here? Maybe having a Bedini SG motor course and presenting it to the startup world in Silicon Valley or in other areas around the country that are starting to kind of blossom around just new technology.
Yeah, that's something that's been batted around for several years with a bunch of different people I know. And here's one thing I know. The second people have an opportunity to make money at it, it's going to go big time. And that's just the nature of our entrepreneurial, ever since man ever traded the first, ocean shell and he profited from it, that's pretty much driven us ever since. And when entrepreneurs, the guy in his garage can make something, go over to his neighbor and say, hey, I got some power for you. And people have access to the knowledge and the materials. It'll be an entrepreneurial boom like you've never seen. It'll make Silicon Valley look small and tiny. And that's kind of how I see it. And it's going to that, like Peter said, things in their own good time. And it's happening right now before our eyes, and this spreading the knowledge, and it's gonna turn into university courses. It's gonna turn into institutes that teach this. It's really, we're in the beginning. I call it the neo-renaissance. We're in the beginning of it, and it can't be stopped now. It's inevitable.
What I say is that if the people lead, the governments and the corporations will follow.
Yes, yes.
He inspired me. It's multi-level. You all can be my downline.
I actually do have plans to move forward with developing a curriculum with all the resources at my disposal to create some type of online university that can walk people from A to Z with a good foundation and move them in a different direction that they want to go depending on where they want to end up in all of this. So that it's not going to be easy. It's something I'm going to need a lot of help with, but that is one of my plans.
I wanted to make a quick comment on this subject. I don't know who else are aware of this, but all across the country, there are maker spaces opening up where they're nonprofit organizations where people can come in and have access to machine shops and instructions on stuff. And people who want to come in and teach a class, the one in Dallas that I'm familiar with, they pay them $50 if they have to have a certain number of students, but it's a small number, like 5 or 6 or something, and they pay them $50 to teach the class. So if any of you put together a curriculum for a class that someone could study and then teach it, they could make $50, and that might go wild. I mean, people might all across the nation might start picking up on your little courses, but for others to have hands-on and teach your courses.
Absolutely. There's something that Aaron and I have been talking about a little bit, and it's not just us. I think this is the next natural step. And the DNESG technology is caught on like wildfire. It's probably the most popular aspect of what we're doing, right? It's the most widely known, the most widely experimented with. Everybody has a model of this thing. Everybody's working on it. Peter had a demonstration today of probably one of the first battery rotation technologies there, because that's core to it. Otherwise, if you just leave it going forever and you don't rotate the batteries, one goes flat and the other overcharges, right? They must take turns. And just now we're getting into that technology. The next natural step for that is to data log, right? Look at the battery voltages, graph that stuff in Excel, graph it in openoffice.org. The software to do that is free. So put it into a computer and watch those batteries breathe. Now, either two things are going to happen with your particular setup. Either the batteries slowly work their way down to the ground, or they reach some ceiling. Either the thing keeps running or it doesn't. You can't be half pregnant, right? Sooner or later, it's going to stop, or it just never did. For the conditions, for the builders who experienced the miracle of their machine not stopping, where it's been on for 90 days, the LEDs are still lit, the batteries are still rotating, and the thing's under its own power. That's the curriculum that I think is very worthwhile to teach. How many people would like to learn how to do that?
How many think you didn't this weekend?
Let me close this with another question. If you could spend like $40 and get a board that would swap the batteries in one of these things, and it had a USB jack that would give you a chart on the computer of the machine's performance, would that be worth $40?
Sold.
All right, cool.
Will you make it? Are you taking deposits?
MLM.
Your next project.
Hey, before we take the next question, there was one thing I was going to mention during the conference, and I only just recalled that I was supposed to do that, which is that there was a donor who wanted to give $400 to the winner of the Crystal Radio Initiative contest, which Eric started the Crystal Radio Initiative, which was originally a challenge to build from Eric's designs a Tesla-style crystal radio to receive an AM station's ground transmission and be able to light a 100-watt light bulb. That would have been the ultimate goal. You would need a crazy ground system to do something like that, but on small scale, some people were running little motors and little lights and stuff successfully from the designs that Eric came up with. Not a whole lot of people participated in doing it. It's not an easy project, but there was one person in Energetic Forum. I don't recall what his username is, but his name is Lee Sargensen, and he did post some pictures online. Eric took a look at it. He's working on building a grounding system. He's going to dump a bunch of aluminum, melt a bunch of aluminum, and dump it in all these holes in his ground because his landlord won't let him bury poles in the ground. So, but he's going to. He has another way of making the grounding system. So anyway, he needs a little bit of money to do that, and I talked to the donor who wanted to donate that money, and he only needed about 175, but we're going to go ahead and send him the whole 400 to support his effort in that. So if you're watching this, Lee, I'll send you an email and get that to you, so hopefully you can get that project finished and take it to the next level. So anyway, congratulations to Lee for his efforts in that. Go ahead, next question.
Yeah, my name is Dick Galloway. I'm from Des Moines, Iowa. My brother called me about 2 months ago and says, hey, let's come to this conference. And I thought, wow, I don't know, because I don't know a whole lot about electronics, but I know some people that do, and my brother's one of them. And so I just want to tell you guys that you really enlightened a lay person, somebody that really knows very little about electronics, and got me excited about it. And I got to thinking, why don't the people that are out here that are very talented in this area, if they have a specific interest in one of these projects, why don't they join little groups, you know? Because what I found out with, we work with Iowa State University and graduate students there, and when they put groups together of, say, 6 people, 4 to 6 people, they get a lot more accomplished, and they get, one idea sparks another idea. So I thought if there was guys out here or gals that saw one particular project they'd like to get on, why don't some people exchange their names and stuff and do a group thing, you know, and take these projects as a group, you know, and come up with answers. And I think it would be tremendous to do that. And I would like to offer anybody here the ability of Iowa State University to help you with your projects if anybody wants any help on anything, including the special medal that you need. Okay. Okay. Anyway, congratulations, guys, on a great conference.
Yeah. Thank you for your suggestions. One of the ways in which we can put it in place, if we got an email list of all the people who wish to have their emails known, and then pass it around through all the people, this would give us a way of communicating to one another, and we could have projects in which, for example, a few people want to try to build something like this, another group build something like that, and then the next conference, representatives of these groups can be here and make a short, like 10-minute presentation of what happened with their project, what were the results.
Yes. Local user groups. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Now I think is the time to do it. And that would bring a lot of the people who are in the conference, it would bring us much closer together.
In fact, maybe have a notebook or something, everybody put their email, and then pass an email around where everybody chips in about what they're interested in, what they'd like to do.
Michael? It was suggested to me this weekend actually to create a directory of everybody who attended, and it was actually suggested by Ken Roshan. This is something they do at one of the business conferences that I went to back in December, and it was actually pretty helpful. But besides just like a name and email and a little bio of what you're into, you know, the contact information, it was kind of photo-based where there's obviously an alphabetical order, but each person's photo was there, because you might not remember the name, but I know when I got the directory and I looked through it, I remember virtually 100% of every single person I interacted with and what they were doing. And so instead of the notebook deal, you know, which is a good idea, I have a database of, you know, the attendant, all the attendees. And so what I'm going to do is create a directory, which will be in print. I'll mail it to you. If you want to be a part of that and have your information shared with the rest of the attendees, send me a photograph, make sure it's, you know, square, just make it easy on me. I don't know what the time frame is going to be, but send me a photo, name, email, phone number, and maybe a 1 or 2 sentence little description of what you're into, and I'll put that in a directory. Okay? Yeah, just email me the photo. Yeah, and I would stay away from a lot of the Google stuff. But and the other part of that about local groups getting together, I do have one website, SpokaneTeslaSociety.com. I got a pretty good sized mailing list on that. Unfortunately, when I announced it, most people outside of Spokane started signing up for it. We haven't had any meetings yet because I've been too busy with this conference. But there are different, Tesla societies around. Maybe move that out of the way. And so what my goal is, at least in the local area, because of the resources we have in this area, is to possibly hold monthly meetings where somebody can come in, give a talk, public can come in and kind of expand a growing network of people interested in these kind of things, where they can come in, answer questions, maybe get some help building something. So how many people are within maybe a 2 or 3 hour drive from the Spokane Coeur d'Alene area that's in here? So that's a good handful of people. So if something like that was available, would you come? Yeah. And would you tell your friends and have them come? And ask them to invite their friends to come with them? And ask them to do the same thing you did? So it's telling to tell to tell. And so we can probably pack a room. But so anyway, at least I want to do something like that here in Spokane. I think you might like to participate. And so, you have a question?
Test 1, 2. Can't make it to 3 sometimes, I think. I thought I was last in line a little while ago, and I thought it would be a nice way to end the conference, but it's not over yet.
Never will be.
Thank you.
It's an open system.
So, Aaron, MLM, you guys are already experts at it. The room's full of LMN, OP, QRSTU, VWXYZ. Okay. So, I thought I'd add a little comic relief at the end. I asked the gentleman sitting next to me when he took a picture, I says, how many people are there? 1, 2, 3, So, I have 10 fingers yet, so I was able to count 9. So my original question was, how many people are there on the Supreme Court? Anybody else? The question's for everybody in the room. 8. Say us. How many? Too many was the answer here. So out of respect for everyone's time, we're all having a good time. I was going to say that I would rather respect the opinions of these non-robed gentlemen in Washington State than I would the opinions of the robed people in Washington, D.C. It's as short as I can make it. God bless you and God bless America. There you go.
He said, do you think they should be roped instead of robed?
I wonder if each of you would take a shot at the trajectory issue again for me. There's a lion's share of half a century of experience sitting at this table, and you've seen a lot of things happen in the last 40 or so years. When I first started playing around the edge of this, there were all these talks about people disappearing and getting poisoned and all of that business. And in that period of time, as Eric has suggested, the internet has come in, has changed the global nervous system. It's changed the whole kind of framework here. So I'm interested qualitatively, not just in terms of kind of the threats, but qualitatively, where do you see this going? And how is it changing? Are we in an enlightening period? Is it moving in a new direction? And if each of you would take a shot at that, I'd appreciate it.
Well, renaissances always come out of hard times. When you look at the last Renaissance, religious oppression, You think we have wars now? Back then, you didn't dare speak your mind. You lost your head, or you were burned at the stake. Galileo, he just pointed out something really simple and told the church, the inquisitors were telling them, we have all these learned men that for 150 years have studied the stars, and they built it. I can't remember the name of the model, but they had this working mechanical model. And yeah, and they says, if our model works, how can you possibly deny the facts about our model? And he made one statement. He says, well, if I'm over here standing on this piece, does it work? And instantly string him up. And so, but out of that, they couldn't suppress the great minds. They couldn't stop the Stark. They couldn't stop the Blaze. And this is a repeat of history. It's unstoppable. We're a species on the rise, and nobody can stop it. And so the joy of it is we're just going to watch it unfold. We keep doing what we do, and it's going to unfold in its own natural progress. But I don't think 50 years from now you'll be able to recognize civilization. And that's kind of my take on it.
I think that it's very nice to ponder on what the thing is going to blossom into in the long term. And when we do think about it, our tendency is to meditate more on the technological aspects than anything else, since that's more or less a physical thing that we can sort of get our hooks into. But in reality, what it means on a more subtle level is that we're really defining an unfolding of consciousness. And Peter more or less alluded to that earlier when he was speaking. And that's really what's happening here. This may be a mechanism to allow a consciousness acceleration to occur, but it is only that type of an unfoldment, that type of a blossoming that really will propel mankind to the places where we want to go. And the interesting thing about consciousness is you have to really kind of look at it from a very different point of view to appreciate it. The fact of the matter is, everything that we are striving for, everything that has been invented, everything that will be invented, everything that will ever be known is actually here already. That's the most amazing thing. And I've seen this in my own work, and so if it's true for me, I'm sure it's true for everybody, and that is, as you labor to understand and expand your mind and your consciousness into the complexities of nature, suddenly something happens. I don't know how to define it. I'm sure it's happened to everybody in this room. But when it does happen, you can't help but notice it. It's an awareness. It's an explosion of awareness. And all of a sudden, you're in a different place. And you're looking at the same stuff. Nothing seems to have changed, but all of a sudden you know it's different. And you say, damn, I've been looking at that for the last 13 years, and all of a sudden I see it differently. That's the kind of thing that's really going to make the difference. And the interesting thing is, there's two ways to achieve that. You can sit around and wait for somebody else to do all the work, and then when they more or less publish their ideas, you can sit there and meditate on them and say, gee, that's pretty cool. I think I'll embrace that. That's a very nice process. It doesn't involve any personal sacrifice, but it takes forever and a day because you can't tell when somebody's going to produce something that's going to ring your bells. But if you get off your duff and do it yourself, you actually have the power to define when these explosions of consciousness are going to take place for you. Doesn't matter if you're pursuing a cooking recipe or some kind of astral reality or a free energy machine. It doesn't make any difference what the heck it is. If you put your mind and your heart in gear, these types of explosions of consciousness will happen for you. And the whole idea here is for all of us to be a cooperative organism all doing the same thing and striving for the same thing, not wait for what Joe Blow is going to do. Do it yourself. And you'll see that it makes a heck of a difference. Thank you.
I think we're coming into a stage of a paradigm change. We are going to have a paradigm change in science. And that paradigm change is not only going to include free energy, it's going to include consciousness. And that paradigm change not only is going to be mechanical, but it's going to be very alive. Because consciousness is not something that's closed. Consciousness is open. And that means we're going to see a raising of consciousness among all the peoples in the world. And even though today that we see all these terrible things going on in different places in the world and so on, this is all going to be improving as enough people come to a place where their consciousness, and somehow they've made themselves better people. They've made themselves ethical people. They made themselves happy people. They made themselves people with love towards others. When this begins to happen, it's going to bring along the rest of the population in our civilization. And the time frame, free energy stuff commercially within 5 to 7 years.
How do I follow that?
I'd just like to add one more thing to this. I have this very deep belief that has been reaffirmed throughout my life that consciousness is the basic building block of the universe. Matter doesn't form consciousness, consciousness forms matter. And we're experimenting and learning that lesson along the way, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're learning that we generate matter, we generate reality, living things, consciousness, that spark I am that's in all of us. That's the root of everything, and always will be.
Here's one thing that in the year 2000, whatnot, y'all remember 9/11? It was terrible, and I had a little like 11-inch TV, and the back was off of it because I like to do things with the wires and all this. And they were having news broadcasts because the tragedy had just happened, and I was dumb enough, and I called in the news, and they put me on the air, and I said, you know, we were taught to turn the other cheek and to forgive and to love our enemy, and they hung up on me. And I felt upset about it. So that's what we're taught. Right? Radical idea. And I walked back in the house, and I tripped over the TV, and it fell, and the neck of the little CRT broke. And I really haven't had a TV since. I had one. Here's something to try, because we're talking about consciousness here, and what are the fundamental properties of consciousness? And Mike Waters, you got to be one of the most quotable guys I have ever run across. I had to write this down. Explaining a non-conscious universe with consciousness is profoundly funny. So what's one of the things that really hallmarks consciousness? And it can be this, that what you focus on grows. And consciousness is focus. What else in the universe can focus? You don't just find a lens floating around and among the stars. We have that ability to focus for as long as we want. And whatever we focus on will grow. We are magnifiers. We're like a little sun that focuses on a seed and causes it to grow. So be very vigilant with this short time we have on this earth and the short amount of energy that we're given during that time, right? We're just human. And there's a lot to forgive, and there's a lot of flawed, crazy stuff. Now, if we're going to focus on that flawed, crazy stuff, it's going to grow. And I've found no purer source in my life for flawed, crazy stuff than my television set, which is why I don't happen to own one. Well, I own them, but I take them apart. It's just a lot more fun than sitting there staring at them, right? So find something that lights you up. Get a good book. Focus on that, and it will grow. And that is your personal power on this earth.
What a fortuitous trip. What I've observed, especially ever since I started, was there has been a consciousness growth amongst all the people at the conferences over time. In the beginning, it used to be a lot of, oh, this is my idea, my device, and everything else. And then there's gradually been a growth towards the open source movement, which is founded in the basic premise and the basic recognition we are each other. We are actually a group being. And as I start to focus on this, good things really start to happen. Synchronicity, especially, and the synchronicity is sourced in the other people, and the right people show up at the right time. And I keep getting inspired by that. And I was reflecting on the primary consciousness realizations that certainly empower me. And the first one is that we are each other. And the second one is my spirit, my mind, transcends my physical being. So there is simply no fear of death because all of us are doing it, and it's simply a transition. And because I have friends that had near-death experiences, they just wake up and they say it's just like waking up from a dream. And the reality they wake up to is so familiar. And so those two realizations, we are each other and we are basically immortal, allows us to play as angels here.
Yes.
For entertainment purposes only. No. Search online. You might find it fun to read. It's short and simple. I really can't add anything to anything that was said here. But search online for Murakami model of synchronicity. That's actually a paper that exists, and you might find it interesting about synchronicities. And I'd like to mention two websites. One is lessonsinadvancedperception.com, and one is a course in mindpower.com. Not to send you there to buy a book or anything, but just read the pages in detail very carefully and just see if there's something in there that you think is for you. So lessonsinadvancedperception.com and a course in mindpower.com. Next question.
So I spent most of my adult life as a professional student, so it's encouraging to come here and see that there's a lot of other people that can... Is that the speaker?
Hey, Aaron.
So it's encouraging for me to come here and see so many other people that have spent a lifetime trying to learn. And now I feel like I've got about half the education I really need to understand what you're telling us. But if you would give us some guidance on how this open license technology can go forward, and a big corporation such as we've seen in agriculture in the United States doesn't come in with their army of lawyers and come down and squash us little guys, because I see that played out. I'm from the Midwest also, and I've seen an entire industry that's affected the entire world be dominated by small groups of very powerful attorneys working for these huge corporations. And we've got great potential with what we're talking about here, but for us to make this come about on a scale that would have potential to affect the world, we'd have to have something along the parallel of what happened with Unix in the software industry, which was structured on an open license basis, and anybody could go and subscribe to that and then develop upon it. Something along the lines of Red Hat Linux, which is a perfect manifestation of what I'm talking about. That would not have come about without that type of open license structure. So how do we avoid being the victims of a Monsanto or some other corporate entity that wants to squash us? It could be a Siemens, it could be a GE, someone that wants to take technology that we have tried to develop collaboratively, and then they take it as their own and forcefully apply it through courts and other measures.
You can't herd cats. You ever heard that thing about trying to herd cats? And you can't tell all the cats where to go because they're like cats, right? I'm not sure that I understand the question, because collaborative effort is the cure for that. You can take a party to court. Why are terrorists so hard to find? They don't have a home country. They're just kind of everywhere. It's like pollution. It's just dilute. It's all over the place. And you can't nail that. So by sharing this information, how do they take that to court if everybody knows? If it's all over the internet, if it's in 6 different forums, how do you kill that? So I believe that the more that we share and the more that we cooperate, the greater odds we have of being inaccessible to the forces that would try to stop something by focusing negatively on it. This is too distributed. You can't kill Linux, it's open source.
Your question is very good, and Graham's comment's great there, but it's a question I've been pondering since day one, because I work for some of the biggest corporations in the world, and I think the world is becoming quite aware. We're right at the beginning of this awareness about corporate dominance, you know, the unfair game. If we really had it, I can tell you there's no such thing as a free enterprise system in the United States. I deal with it every day. We're a little tiny company of 7 people, and we're up against GE, Siemens, ABB, all these big corporations. And they have the invisible hand. They work behind you to try to cut your funding off. But I think the awareness is growing, that people are growing, that the mass of the population is just going to take corporations, break them down, and get them under our thumb rather than us being under their thumb. I think that's beginning now. You're seeing it in the public consciousness, really realizing how their personal freedom and their opportunities and their ability to make their own decision is being thwarted by that model. And I think the rebellion is on, and it's going to change over the next few years. You know, it might take 50 years for us. I think we will end monopoly and limit the size of corporations and their ability to influence the legal system. I think that's coming. But it's going to be a hard, tough battle. But it's a slow pendulum, but it's swinging that way.
I think one of our best weapons is, well, not weapons, but best tools is social media. And we need the latest generation to help us with that. I think that can become a very, very powerful force. That's the short answer to that one. I want to actually address the question before, and John, if you don't mind, I'd like to recognize who asked it. John Peterson's probably one of the most recognized futurists, and has quite a background himself. So, a very interesting question from someone with that background. But I would say grab your surfboards. This is a wave that's coming, and maybe more than one wave, because you've got conflicting waves, and we could get into the physics of conflicting waves. But I think there's enough momentum behind some of the changes that are occurring naturally. And from a consciousness perspective, all I can say is I'm seeing more and more coincidences that I can't explain, and what keeps me going is a certainty that what's happening here has purpose. And if it didn't, this universe would have a really poor sense of humor.
Hello, my name is Dan Harkins. I just wanted to compliment the people on the panel here. I thought you had an excellent presentations this weekend. It's very unique. I've been following this organization for years. Can you hear me? Okay. I've been following this organization for years, and I congratulate all the people. You put out a lot of good information. It's just difficult for a lot of people to get it out and assimilate it. But with, like you say, with the new media that we have, open source, and internet and everything, the message can get out much easier. I have an observation. I was wondering, where the symbol from infinity came from, because some of the stuff that was mentioned here by you people as you get smaller and smaller particles, you get more and more energy. And the other end of the spectrum, it follows that the larger it is, the less energy it is. And when I started looking, I looked at searches on the internet, and the infinity symbol is two sine waves. It's like a circle that's twisted. Okay? They join together. It's like a circle that's twisted, two sine waves, and they join together at a common point in the middle. Okay? And I think everything we're talking about, the 0 point energy and everything, it all comes together. And so I just looked this up, and the earliest part of it appears in ancient Arabic calligraphic renderings of the name of God. That's all they mention it. That's what's on here. So one little story about the battle. Okay, I just want to know if any of you guys knew where the source of the infinity symbol came from.
Hello.
Hey, Justice, do you know where that symbol came from?
Well, I don't know, but it is somewhat of an appropriate the symbol. You all know what the infinity symbol looks like. Basically, it tipped over figure 8. You're tipped over 8. Anyway, because it's a closed loop which has no beginning and no end. So it is somewhat intuitive as a symbol of the infinity.
A snake eating its own tail, or two snakes eating their own tails. I think there's some references in historical stuff.
The symbol of infinity is you can think of it as actually a resonance. The one loop is twisting and turning and goes to the other loop, which is at another place, another kind of energy, which is twisting and turning, and then comes back to the first loop, and it continues on and on in a completely open world. That's infinity.
Aaron, is it time for me to burst the bubble? My colleague here is encouraging it.
All opinions are welcome.
What's that?
Well, okay, put on your seatbelts, everybody.
Okay, I didn't even want to be part of this panel because I don't want to spoil everybody's fun with reality. But at any rate, this is not an open loop system. This is a closed loop system. We don't really represent the world. It's the same old farts that you've been listening to for 30 years. Eric Dollard, John Bedini, Jim Murray, and Moray King, and it hasn't changed. Society, I get around, and I have to live at the butt end of it. I spent 11 years living on the streets of San Francisco, and I'll tell you right now, the human race is swirling down the toilet bowl. There is no raise in consciousness. This was a major theme in my last presentation. We are entering a dark ages. And in entering a dark ages, we got to figure out where we're going to hide the diamonds and the rubies. That's all there is. As far as all this suppression, most of this stuff is pure crap. So let me give you a practical example. I've developed an advanced seismic warning system, I think as most people know. Right now, I have very high-level government backing in this project. I have provided with all the materials, all the long lines I want in the desert, all the government protection. Where is your suppression? The suppression is I can't get one person interested or one group interested in coming up with the basic funding for the situation because people are too busy spending their money on six-wheel pickup trucks and their lifestyles. As far as Siemens goes, Siemens visited my installation personally, sent one of their top engineers. They're very interested. As far as the hydrogen separation goes, right now Siemens is building power plants all throughout Europe that run on hydrogen, and they are crying for somebody to make something that actually works to separate the hydrogen and oxygen without using energy to use in these plants. The problem with Siemens is the problem with everything, is everything has become so complicated and so digitized that even though they're highly interested in my advanced seismic warning project, there's nothing they can do. I have two major utility companies that are ready to put this in application, are ready to provide the land. They don't have the money to do it. They need the public somehow to support this operation. There is no suppression in my world. The people that have done all the damage to me have principally been the real estate office and racial cartels. I don't have a problem with any of these people. LA Water and Power would just love to have a free energy machine, but nobody to this day has ever, with their so-called free energy, ever have made a kilowatt hour meter turn backwards. There is not one machine in existence today that I can plug into one of these wall receptacles and force that meter on the wall backwards. I don't see in my world, as a practicing electrical engineer, any resistance to any of this stuff. The resistance all comes from academia, and it comes from political groups. Principally the demon that's going to become our next president, who already is our next president. That's the group that has hassled and destroyed all of my research. The people that are starting all these wars and all these murders and disruption around the planet, that is the group that's suppressing me. Not the government, not the power companies, and not the corporations. And that's basically all I have to say on it.
Once again, I want to thank all of the panel members for your presentations and for the existence of these conferences. And I especially want to thank everyone for bringing the consciousness component into the discussion, because the other half of my life is not about science, it's about consciousness. And they're really not two separate things. So in this discussion, I want to present an idea and then bring it back actually to something that Derek has just pointed out. We're moving toward both social models, environmental models, and here with these devices, probably physical energy producing machines, in which we recognize that our person, our company, and quite possibly the device that has been treated as an isolated thing, separate from its surrounds, has to be recognized that it actually participates in whatever it is that surrounds it. And I'm purposely not calling it the environment, but whatever it is that totally surrounds it so that it can draw energy from whatever source it does draw, whether it be, when we saw it as simply a fueled device, we could treat it as something that stands on its own. But that's an incomplete understanding, isn't it? Very, very incomplete. So what this means is that we have to shift our view so that we consider ourselves humans as simply participants in the nature of which we are part, not human versus nature, but nature and humans participating in one and the same total system. That also means then that the devices that we operate participate, whether they're drawing energy from sources that we don't currently quite understand, or adding or dumping energy in ways we can't understand the losses from our side. That in turn means that we have to become responsible for those influences to the parts of the total surrounds that we're not currently seeing, whether they be beneficial or, as it could be, whether they be toxic. So how shall we, or what have you seen that would guide us towards seeing both beneficial and toxic influences, and how should we orient our minds as we continue to evolve these devices so that we're paying attention in that way?
One of the wisest statements I ever, and it wasn't too long I read it, we're not here on planet Earth to abuse Mother Nature or manipulate Mother Nature or rearrange Mother Nature. We're here to learn from Mother Nature. And these machines, they're teaching us. It's Mother Nature teaching us about her benevolent and abundant ways. It's the entropy, Mother Nature, my talk on abundant equality, that's really how Mother Nature works. There's a constant. We live in the most abundant thing there is, Mother Nature, Earth. And once we learn the lessons that she has to teach us, then the abuse of Mother Nature will stop and we'll reach levels. All this stuff, all this physics, what is physics but other than Mother Nature? So these machines, they're teaching us Mother Nature's ways. And that's what it's about. And that's kind of my view of it. It's a 180-degree view from the average human's look. But so, and that's a process of turning that 180 degrees to see that we're integral and part of Mother Nature. Mother Nature is a mass cooperative effort. That's why I just cannot stand evolution, because it's so limited. We live in a cooperative world. We cooperate with the animals, the trees, the plants, the atmosphere. They're all alive and living. The mountain's alive and living. Everything participates in this living, vibrant experience. And all we have to do is listen, and we'll find our answers. And that's kind of my take on it. The machines are teaching us. We're not just pulling these machines up and dominating nature. It's Mother Nature's way of showing us a better way to do things.
There's one species, however, that has no contact with Mother Nature, and that's the human. How many people would survive busting through the ice to wash in the morning like I have to do? How many people could stand the sunlight? How many people could stand the cold? How many people have ever even seen trees or mountains or any of these things? Humans have become mutants, completely separated from reality. They don't have a clue of what their technology is doing, nor do they care. As long as they have their six-wheel pickup truck to drive around in and an infinite source of Iraqi oil, they got everything they want. That's the problem. Technology is not the answer. It's actually, all it is a drug. It's a disease. As for an electrical engineer to say this, I'm sure is an absurdity, but I've been around long enough, and that's my conclusion. I only know one other electrical engineer that ever studied from nature, and that was Steinmetz. GE could never find the guy. He was always on his canoe in some tributary of some river in northern New York State, and they'd have to send people out to hunt for him like some kind of strange animal in Africa and pull him back to work so that the power grid didn't burn up. That is the central problem, is we are completely separated from nature. And me, as a creature of nature, I'm starting to find it's getting harder and harder and harder and harder. And the disease of the human race is sending its enemy soldiers out deeper and deeper and deeper, and the government is tearing up and bulldozing all the jeep trails, and what's left, you're under constant attack of ATVs and this sickening disease that technology has created that you can't find one hole anywhere to get away from it. I have worn out 3 sets of tires driving in 4 states of jeep trails, and I found one place in the world that I could live in peace, in northern or mid-central Oregon, and it burnt to the ground in a forest fire, and that's the end of it. I call the state of Washington prisonplanet.tv. I cannot find one place to sleep in my car. I can't even find a place to take a piss. And in Oregon, if I'm caught taking a piss, even in the forest, it's a sex crime, and I go to jail for the rest of my life.
Where you'll be clothed and fed.
Welcome aboard, Eric.
Will you guys take a survey? Can I see a show of hands? There's this. Everybody says Einstein said this and he said that, and one of his so-called famous quotes. I don't know where it is or if he even said it. He said, "The most important question a person can answer in this life is this: is this a friendly universe?" So, with that in mind, I'd like to see who would say this is not a friendly universe. Raise your hand. You got 8. All right, and who sees this universe as a friendly universe?
How do you define friendly?
How do you define friendly? What's friendly? What's not friendly? I mean, it's up to us all.
It's a friendly universe, supports life.
When's the last time you had to encounter a 7-foot-high bear at midnight?
I stay away from it.
It's friendly to the bear.
All right. We all have our own opinions, and you guys do too. We're creating something here that is a result of our own viewpoint, right? Who's gonna lift heaven and earth?
7-foot-high bear's got its own viewpoint. Let me tell you.
But he didn't come to this conference because he doesn't care about breakthrough energy, and you do. You think it's possible. You're helping make it real. There are other people that don't care. They don't think it's possible. They're not going to help make it real. So it's really up to you. And you can see the whole diverse spectrum of life experiences and viewpoints, right? And not just on this stage. You guys, as a collective, have a richer accumulation of that than just we do as 9 guys sitting in a row. Everybody, we're all here because we basically have 2 or 3 beliefs in common amongst the thousands of beliefs that we happen to have. And look at the power of that unity. And it's not because of something else. You did this, each of you. It's because of you. You're creating it. So thank you.
All the people who have participated in the conference are very, very special. People who can be individuals, people who can think on their own and not think on the basis of what's coming across the TV. You're all able to think on your own. Set your consciousness to think what it is that you want to have created in your circle, in your city, what you want to happen within the framework of science and technology. Think about that. Put your consciousness there. Then it will happen.
Yes.
Going on 4 o'clock right now. We're pretty much right on schedule. A couple minutes after 4. And did you have a question? You going to do maybe one more question, and then we can kind of wrap it up. And some of us are going to be around here for a little while, so if anybody wants to hang out and chat and whatever, network, get to know each other a little bit more, we'll do that. Go ahead. Left.
Okay. My name's Terry Lee. I live a little bit north of Spokane. About 45 years ago, when I was a young man, I spent a whole year and money and time trying to create perpetual motion. After a year of that, I finally gave up and went back to work. But what I'd like to end your conversation with here is today I'm working on the technology of compressed air, and I have some patents in process right now, but which takes energy to run. So I would like to encourage everyone in this room that's involved in what you're doing here to grab a young man or a young woman and teach them what you already know and bring them up as the next generation of people like you. I see a lot of older people in here and very few young people. We need to get the young people involved in this movement so that they're the next generation. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we can kind of keep on track. We'll go ahead and wrap it up. Does anybody have any final comments or? Okay. Well, I would like to thank all of you for coming to this event. I know what it takes to go to an event far away from home. It's very tiring, and there's a lot of commitments and a lot of things you have to put aside to make this kind of commitment. So thank you very much for coming. I would like to give a special thanks to all the volunteers we had this weekend who helped drive the speakers around, and all the presenters, and take them out to dinner, and Jeff and Deo. Jeff in the back, raise your hand. Jeff, raise your hand. So this is Jeff Moe. If you ever contact us, have problems with some of the book or video downloads, or you're doing anything with any of your orders with Tesla chargers, or you have technical support, Jeff is the one who you're speaking to. Deo in the background, raise your hand. Deo has been kind enough to help pick some of the presenters up at the airport, bring them out to the hotel. He's actually from Spokane but lives in Seattle. And I just want to mention that Deo's brother actually is from Spokane, but he lives in the Dominican Republic. If you need a company that makes, if you're looking to manufacture any kind of electronic devices, his brother owns the largest PC board manufacturing plant in the country, in the Dominican Republic. And it's the, what is it, the largest or the top-rated one in the Western Hemisphere. And he also has one of the largest machine shop factories in the Dominican Republic, as well as one other. So if you're interested, get a hold of Deo, and he can put you in touch with his brother. I'd like to thank Rhonda Bedini and Renee Person. They've been kind enough to kind of orchestrate a lot of, bringing you guys water and coffee, trying to make sure that's filled up. And let's see. I'm not sure what time this lodge is open till tonight. It may be maybe 6 o'clock or something like that. Another couple hours, and we'll be closing down and stuff. And so, and a special.
And thank you, Aaron.
I'll end it there. And thank you to all of you for coming and joining the conferences and helping to present this weekend. Thank you so much, everybody.